get right into this tonight. Glad you're here. Hallelujah. So obviously, as a Pastor Stacy on Sunday, it's kind of funny. The last time he preached for us, right before he preached for us, I had just told him no again. He had called me, asked me to preach for him. I said, I can't. Then right after that, I called him, can you preach for me, though? And he came. I was really surprised. I didn't want to tell him that, but I was surprised he actually came. But thank God for our brother. I had a good time at his church Sunday morning and preached Sunday morning, Sunday night. I did a God's talk, and they seemed to really like it. Some of the pastors called me and told me about it. But anyway, it's my favorite place to teach or preach is here. So here, I'm glad I'm here tonight. I want to get right into this tonight. This one's called God Talks SMA and the Making of a Man of God. It's on humility. Look at this quote by C.S. Lewis. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. That sounds good, and it's a nice quote, but it is very hard for us to think of ourselves less. And being humble and humility. Being humbled isn't the same thing as just because you've been humbled or humiliated doesn't mean you're humble. It doesn't mean you can be humiliated sometimes by incidences and things happen to you, but to have humility is very, it's something we have to all strive for. And there's obvious reasons, and I'll ask you some questions as we go on here, but look at the definition. Simple definition is the quality or condition of being humble, modest opinion, or estimate of one's importance. I want you to meet a guy by the name of Mr. Jefferson. This guy, I happen to notice, and I do believe this, that the world is run by people who notice things. And I noticed this guy at this coffee shop come in and watch him a little bit. I probably noticed too much, and I think too much probably, but at least my brain's working a little bit. But I noticed this guy to come in early. I'd go to the coffee shop. He was always there studying his Bible. I got to know the guy's name and what church he goes to. He studies and teaches, got students all over actually different places. I think Africa, he said. But he's there very early in the morning studying, and then after for a little bit, then he'd be gone. I'd come back later and he'd be gone. And I noticed he'd be there off and on. And so one day I walked by his car, and I noticed inside his car, if I look at someone's car, just what I do, I just happen to look and see if there's any kids' seats in there, any child seats. It means there's child seats, it means they got kids or got babies. That means he's a family man. And so I happened to walk by his car, and I noticed a car seat in there. But he looks like an older guy. So I'm thinking, grandkids, his own kids. I was just curious. So we're there talking. I talked to him again. I say, how you doing? He said, good. And I said, you got kids? And he said, well, no, I really don't have kids. Well, I have kids, but let me explain. I said, okay. And he said, I have a daughter that's schizophrenic. She has a few other mental problems. And she was taken advantage of, and she had a child. She said, I'm trying to raise the child. He said, I'm trying to take care of her. And I said, wow. I said, and he's a Christian guy, but he's always so happy. After he told me that, I'm thinking, man, this guy, you'd think he would not be so happy, right? You'd think like some folks, well, I don't know why God would allow my daughter to have this happen to her, but he's just talking, and any time I say something to him, he thinks I'm the funniest thing in the world. He laughs at anything I say. I don't care what I say to him. He just laughs, and he said, and so we were laughing, and he's laughing. I'm just listening to him laugh. And he said, well, let me tell you. I said, man, that's quite a bit. You take care of your daughter. He said, well, I have to because she's not all there. And then we're trying to raise the baby. Oh, I'm trying to raise the baby. And I said, he said, but that's not all. He said, my father is 83 years old. He has Alzheimer's disease. So he's staying with us now. He said, so I have him to take care of. I have my daughter to take care of, and I have the baby to take care of. And he said, and I'm just listening to him. He said, I said, and your wife? He goes, yeah, well, she was going to retire. She decided to keep working another year because she saw what was happening at home. She wouldn't have, it was just too much. So she's going to retire in a year and come back and help me. But I was working a job for 12, 14 hours a day. I was a manager at a car dealership. He said, truthfully, take care of my dad, take care of my daughter, take care of the baby is harder. He says, it's a lot harder. He said, but someone had to do it. He said, you know what happened? I said, I'm just listening. I said, no, I don't know what happened. And he said, my dad got lost twice. My wife and my daughter, I have another daughter, my wife went to, and this daughter went to Disneyland. And they called me and said, we lost your dad. And I said, how can you lose my dad? He's a big guy. How did you lose my father at Disneyland? And they go, well, we went into a little store there, we put him on the bench, and he was fine. Next thing you know, we walk out and he was gone. So he goes, oh my God. So he said, I had to leave the dealership, run to Disneyland. I get to Disneyland. They're trying to look for him everywhere. I said, okay, you guys start over here. We'll start on this end. We'll come together. And sure enough, he said, I'm there looking. We're all looking. I see this man out in the parking lot, right there by the traffic, the cars and everything, just the street there, I guess, getting ready to walk across the street, full traffic. And he said, I looked far away. I said, kind of look at my dad. My dad's big. You can't miss my dad. He said, trust me, he's big. Anyway, that's what he said. So he said, I happened to look, and it happened to me and my father. I ran up to him and said, Dad, what are you doing? There's cars everywhere. What are you doing? He said, I'm walking home. So he gets him. He said the other time they went to Tyler Mall, not Tyler Mall, they went to the mall here at off Canyon Crest, off Central. He said, same thing, my daughter and my wife go into Forever 21, and they put him out front, and they thought for sure. They walk in, they walk back out, and they call me. You won't believe it. He said, don't tell me. We lost your dad again. He said, I don't believe, how can you lose my dad? What did you do with my dad? And they said, well, we went inside the store. We just started shopping. We put him out there. He looked happy. He was fine. He was just sitting there. And we walk out, and he's gone. So he said, oh, no. So he comes back home, finds his father, make a long story short, he's able to get his father. And so he decides, yeah, I got to quit my job because I can't. He said, how they do it, I don't know. He said, but they keep losing my father, and I'm about to lose my father. He's only got one father, right? And I said, wow. And he said, so I quit my job, and I do this full time. And he says, so I come in the morning to the coffee shop, try to study my Bible a little bit. It's the only peace I have. It's my time for a few moments of study. Because once I leave here, he said, I got to go face that. He said, I got a big brush. Because every morning I got to get my dad up and I had to give him a bath. I got a big brush and it's a big long pole, and I got to literally give him a bath, get him dressed, sometimes feed him. Sometimes he can feed himself. Just depends on what kind of day he's having. He said, so really? He said, I got my hands full. And I'm listening to him. I said, man, you're one special person. I said, I really believe this. I'm not just saying it because I should say this to you. I said, but people who do what you're doing, I know it's your family, but people who do what you do and showing that kind of love and compassion, and you're special, man. He said, well, you know what? He said, no one else is going to do it. I have to do it. And so this is my little free time right here, but I'm out of here. He said, my world changes once I walk out those doors. You know, sometimes you can hear somebody, and I don't know if you can understand what I'm going to say, but sometimes you can hear them, their life, and you're kind of humbled. You know what I mean? You're kind of humbled. You look, and some people, it's so ironic. I'm sitting there, he's telling me the story. He leaves. These kids come, college kids, they're sitting next to where he was at, sitting there, and they're talking about stupid games they're playing. And the contrast between these kids talk about games and just go to school and they play these games, and they do this and they do that, and just went on and on. These are young adults that are acting like they're 13. I said, I'm listening to these kids and listening to that guy, like two different worlds. So you guys think you have it rough. You're a little tired. And they're talking about being tired and just I get up late, I get up at 10 or 11 and then go to school. And if I don't like school, I drop out. You're just like, oh, God, help us. But to hear this guy, how many understand what I'm saying? Sometimes you can hear someone's story and you're humbled. I mean, you think, I said, man, I got it made listening to this guy. So that don't have a lot to do with my sermon, but let me get into this. I just introduce you to this guy because I guess it does humbled. Humility, it goes together. Okay, there we go. It's called, I don't know if you know what SMA, I referred to it in a God Talk before, SMA. And SMA is pretty simple. It's the term for smart machine age. And let me read this to you very briefly, because this is out of a book called Humility, the New Smart. It's the new smart. That's what the title of the book is. And this is, well, let me just read this to you, because I'm getting ahead of myself. But listen to this. SMA, Smart Machine Age, the term describes the time when machines will become increasingly capable of performing complex tasks and non-routine work, jobs that once required human labor. As SMA dawns on us, and it is, technologies like robots, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, genetic engineering will quickly come to dominate the professional and personal lives of human beings. As they continue to become more sophisticated, machines will take on more manual and cognitive tasks, both in and outside the workplace. What does this mean for humans? Well, if you're a lawyer, you're a journalist, or a teacher, or an accountant, you can't be too certain that your job is going to be secure anymore. It could be taken over by a robot. In fact, 2013, a study was done by Oxford University found extreme likelihood that as many as 47% of the U.S. jobs will be replaced by technology within 20 years. The latest. As human success in the SMA depends on a whole new approach. We call it the new smart approach. After all, we can't compete with machines in terms of processing and retaining huge amounts of information. Our options are either to complement the work of machines or to do the work that they can't do, which includes critical thinking, emotional engagement, and creative practices. However, in a society that is hyper-focused on competition, aggression, individual success, we're often too self-involved and fixed on our own beliefs to adapt to such skills. And of course, this slows down progress, if any. We will only excel when we learn to collaborate, an ability that enables greater critical thinking, emotional engagement, and creativity. But our general unwillingness to work together doesn't mean humanity is doomed. Indeed, there's a way to acquire the skills that that will help you transcend your current limitations. Cultivating 4 abilities will give you the ability to survive the coming age, which is already kind of upon us. I won't go into all 4. I will go into 4 of them, but they're very, very brief. I'm just giving you the rough thing they say you need to have, and this will make sense in a moment. So what are the skills they say we have to have? And they lay it out. Well, it said the first one you've got, it's known as quieting the ego. This refers to the ability to trim back your emotional defensiveness, directing empathy towards others by letting your guard down and becoming more objective, open-minded, and open-hearted. For instance, when you get unflattering feedback from a friend or a colleague, you should welcome the criticism. Avoid the human impulse to tell yourself that they're just simply wrong. Quieting the ego. Let me just stop here for a moment. Our egos don't want to be quieted. Quieting our ego. Just quiet your ego. If it was that easy, it'd be a lot less divorces. There'd be a lot less church fights, a lot less problems in people's lives. You can just quiet the ego. It's not that easy. The second one was focus on managing yourself. Emotional intelligence I talked about. They don't use this terminology here, but same thing kind of. This means fostering a healthy, controlled approach to your thoughts and your feelings. Without this skill, you will grow preoccupied with your fears and your own personal insecurities, which will prevent you from connecting to other people. This may deprive you of the power of critical and creative thinking that can be derived from human collaboration. The third skill you will need is actually learning how to really listen, which is a way to free your thoughts and perceptions of the world and transcend your cognitive and emotional biases. Reflective listening is about taking the time to truly understand other people and their ideas. Practicing this will help you be open-minded and challenge your preconceived notions of the world with a more open mind. You'll be better at forging productive, collaborative relationships. And number 4, the one you must master, it's called the need to master otherness. This skill simply refers to the ability to establish strong connections with other people. A focus on creative thinking and emotional connection is one of the utmost importance. So it's clear why mastering otherness is necessary before you collaborate with others. You must first learn how to connect with them. The problem is, for the vast majority of us, our worldview doesn't allow us to sync with other people. We love ourselves too much. To overcome this, you've got to change how you think. Your model, your mental model must change. And that model includes everything that shaped your experiences, your understanding of the world, your education, your culture, and where you grew up. This world is about individualism and competition, which is against everything MSA says to be and do. Here's the quote. So success means updating your mental model, and the name of the game is humility, which is interesting. Humility is actually the mindset that allows you to lower your defenses and wash away your biases. In turn, enables you to perceive the world and meet people as they really are. To put it differently, humility is the attitude that lets you operate in self-accurate, open-minded way that focuses on others rather than yourself. If you can master humility, you will be on track, developing all the skills you will need to succeed. Isn't that amazing that the end of all this whole thing is that what you need is the ingredient you need is humility. In the business world, they say one of the best-selling books on leadership. Guess what it is? The Bible. The unsaved people are teaching from the Bible leadership skills, because here's the problem. They recognize there's no greater leader than Jesus. You're going to model someone that model humility, humble, servant, you name it, all the qualities that we all should have. It's found in Jesus Christ. And a lot of business people, successful people are saying, you know what? Jesus modeled what he modeled in leadership, we should all do it. There's nothing better. One guy, actually, a guy who's actually an atheist, teaches leadership on the Bible, out of the Bible. He don't even believe in God. They said there's no better concepts. But I find kind of funny in this sense, because you can have Bible principles, but you'll have a power shortage to perform them. It's one thing for me to teach you a Bible principle and talk about humility, but at the core of us and the core of people, I don't care who you are, the core of someone that's not saved is an unredeemed man who loves himself. And even the best man who embraces SMA, does everything, all the four things, he does them all, he listens, he does everything right, but at the very core of his being has not been transformed. He is still unredeemed, still selfish, it's all about him. That's the problem. And they say, and I say the problem with all these techniques they're learning from Jesus is I can give you the principles, but unless you give me the transformation that goes with it, I can't do it. You can't live and be a Christian without the power of God working in your life. In other words, our hearts, we know this that once we get saved, our hearts have to be changed. You can tell me just think of others all day long and it'll last about 2 seconds. But when your heart's been redeemed, you actually start thinking about other people. And one thing they all lack is they lack what you and I would call conversion. They want to give them principles, but they can't give them the power that goes with the instruction. And that's where Christianity comes in. And you may not realize this, but we really do have an edge. We have God in our lives, and God helps us be the people God's called us to be. And it's about him and his power. It's you and I tapping into God's power to become what we should become. So let's look at this tonight. Exodus chapter 2, Moses. Because Moses, there's things that he did that we can learn from. There's some lessons that we all can learn from. So follow with me. Exodus chapter 2 to be up there, verse 17 through 22. But some of the shepherds came and chased them away. So Moses jumped up and rescued the girls from the shepherds. Then he drew water for their flocks. When the girls returned home to Reuel, their father, he asked, well, how did you guys come back so soon today? He said, an Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. They answered, and he drew water for us and watered our flocks. Then where is he? The father asked. Why do you leave him there? Invite him to come and eat with us. Listen what it says. Moses accepted the invitation, and he settled there with them in time. Reuel gave Moses his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. Later she gave him birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershon, for he explained, I have been a foreigner in a foreign land. And that's the name of his son, is called a stranger, because I think the reason why I called his son a stranger or an outcast, same meaning, because I don't think he ever accepted his place there. He always felt like an outcast where he was at. So we're talking about God. I call the making of a man of God, but probably shouldn't have used that title. I could have made it talking about making a Christian. Because all the qualities that God wants us to have in Moses are Christian virtues. That's what God wants all of us to have. It's not just a making of a quote man of God. It's a making of a woman of God. It's the qualities we're supposed to have. We're all supposed to have, right? Now here's Moses. First quality, very simple. It's all I'm going to get to is just one. Start here. Some lessons Moses would have to learn would be the lesson on humility. Remember, if you were with us before, to be a shepherd, it was, the Bible even says it was an abomination to the Egyptians to be a shepherd. Moses at this point is going to take a job. I'll get to that in a moment. He's going to take a job at that moment in that culture to be a shepherd, which he's going to do, would be the lowest of the lowest of the lowest jobs. And I don't know what we can relate it to today. I think maybe someone who collects cans for a living. Maybe a guy that goes to your trash can. Maybe not even those, because I met one who went through my trash cans that I told you I met and talked to, and he has an apartment over here. He does decent. You also automatically think they're homeless. They're not all homeless. Someone got, their brain. He's a very intelligent, nice guy. But you're talking, I don't know what the lowest in your mind is. What would be the lowest job available in our society? I don't know what that might be, but that might be someone who collects cans, go through the trash. That'd be like the lowest of the lowest. Well, think about Moses. Moses would go from the highest place there is. He would have power. He would have servants. He would have money. He would have fame. He could do anything he wanted to do. He would go from that to this. You think he was humbled? You think he was humbled? Oh, you better believe he was. And you think about, I'm reading this and I'm thinking, why did he have to take this course? Humility, I call it Humility 101. We all have to take the course. We're all going to have to take this course. We say, well, I'm not picking up no cans. Well, you may not pick up cans, but God has a way and God knows us. God's looking at Moses' life, and Moses ends up here, and he's become a shepherd. He goes from being the man in the palace. We talked about that already, but he goes from there to here. And God was going to put him in this position, the lowest of the lowest, Moses. And I bet you anything, Moses never even entered his mind that he would ever become a shepherd. Why would he? When he was in Egypt, he went to the best schools. He graduated from Harvard. He had the best education. The Bible says that. He had the best education, knew their language, knew their culture, very smart, very brilliant. He had everything going for him. I don't think he had servants. Whatever he said, they'd just do whatever he wanted to be done. Anything, literally. To go from that to this. Why? What does he have to do that? Well, you think about it. There he's in this place. God says, Moses, I'm going to make you a man that's going to lead 1 million people plus. And I got to mold some things into your life that's not there right now. Moses finds himself in this place. Now he's a shepherd. And I bet you, and I don't know for sure, that it never even entered his mind that he'd find himself in that place. Have you ever found yourself in a place that you said to yourself, I would never be here? I would never be here. I would never do that. And you find yourself doing that, and you find yourself being there. You see, how did I get here? Why am I here? It might just be that there's a God in heaven who's trying to change you a little bit. Because we all have a tendency, even you, to be kind of full of yourself. How many have any pride in your life? We all should raise our hands. And the unproud, the ones that say, I'm not having no pride in my house. The fact that you didn't raise your hand tells you got pride more than anyone else. You're lying. Of course you got pride. And so he was going to stay there in the most despised job, the most despised occupation for 40 long years. And he did not even know that it was all a process of preparation for the future to come. He honestly thought he was doomed in that place. When he used the word doomed, he was going to be in that place for the rest of his life. He had no idea that God was going to step into his life 40 years later and ask him to lead his people. We look at our lives today, most of us, sometimes we think it just kind of happened. Well, that may be true. I preached on it. Momentum, the momentum of your life, or the moments, what you do with the moments of your life, what you do in your moments in your life, determine the momentum of your life. I talked about that. But even in that, God still works his will. You find yourself at this place. I made some mistakes. I found myself here. This was not God's original plan. I really blew it. You didn't blow it so much you're out of God's hand. God can still do something in your life. And God was going to do something powerful in Moses' life. And Moses honestly thought it was over. Our example we know is Jesus. Philippians chapter 2. It's up here. It says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble. Thinking of others as better than yourself. Don't look out for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Jesus Christ had. Though he was God, he did not think equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. And when he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God, and he died a criminal's death on the cross. Different translation says, do nothing out of selfish ambition, but in humility. Another one says, each fixing his attention not simply on his own interests, but those of other people. The word humility, listen to what the word humility means. In one Greek book, it says, humility, the word indicates a recognition of personal insufficiency of oneself, but also a powerful sufficiency of God. Let me read that again. The word indicates the recognition of a personal insufficiency of oneself, but the powerful sufficiency of God. Paul says, thinking of others better than yourself. You know what? That goes in the face of everything our society tells us. It's, and you think, and I'll give you the reasons. I will break down quite a bit about humility and being humble. We'll get into that in the next couple of weeks. But was it Whitney Houston? She said the greatest love of all was inside of herself. I feel sorry for you. The greatest love of all is not within us, right? Even in the church, people will tell us, other people, you got to love yourself first before you can love others. It's not true at all, actually. But Paul, think about some of the things Paul says. Does Paul not understand what's wrong with him? Well, Paul understands that naturally human beings are naturally self-centered. No one has to teach us to be self-centered and selfish. In fact, we got to be taught the opposite at a very young age. My granddaughter, Hannah, I shouldn't have said her name, but my granddaughter already said it. She's at her house. She's getting ready to leave, and she goes, I know you already miss me. You miss me already, don't you? Or she gets dressed up. She goes, am I pretty? Am I pretty? I know I'm pretty. I'm beautiful, ain't I? That's what she says. Naturally, we're selfish. Naturally, we're self-centered. The Bible says you and I are supposed to have the mind of Christ. And it says, lays it out, not to be the way natural man naturally is. It challenges us to live a different way. Challenges all of us, not just a pastor or a preacher, all of us as Christians, to live a certain way, to act a certain way, to be a certain way. So, I got a question here. Why in the world does God have to humble us? Not everyone answer at one time. Why does God have to humble us? Oh, Lord, my time's already up. The devil's a liar. I saw a sticker that says, not today, Satan. Goofy, huh? I thought I was going, not today, Satan. So I'm telling myself, not today, Satan. Anyway, not today, Satan. Okay, what does that have to do with the message? Okay, why does God have to humble us? We have to stop here because 30 minutes is the mark. That's it. So why does God have to humble us? Let's just talk. Can we talk? Okay, to change. Change what? Okay. To reflect him? Okay, someone else? Why does God have to change us? Cindy? We're not all what? Do we think we are something? We used to have, before I had the bookshelves, those windows in my office has a two-way mirror. In my office, before I had the bookshelves. You can see what I mean? It's reflective. You can't see in, but I can see out. I should have filmed it and put it on YouTube. People walk out. You see girls walk up. You think I'm joking? Some of you do it already. I mean, you just leave the bedroom. You in the bathroom. You already looked at the mirror, and you get in your car and you look at the mirror again. Nothing changed. You just looked at your house. You looked at your face 2 seconds ago. You need to look at it again. And then you get out of the car. Right before you get out, you look at it one more time. It's still the same face, honey. Nothing's changed. You see, guys walk up. Guys are funny. Guys that walk up. This guy. Here's the typical guy. Not always, but depends on who he is. He walk up. Then turn.